Dave. It's a pleasure to have you on the call.
Hey, good morning, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Hey, excellent.
Joe, Darren also. Oh, Darren's not currently up here yet, but I think he'll be joining us. Maybe not. Joe, good to see you as always.
Indeed. Happy to be here.
So for today's call, we'll have about 4 different sections. We'll be starting off with a little announcement that just went live on the Discord. I think this one's a bit timely, and so Joe, you could talk a bit about that at the start. Then we will dive into the bi-weekly review. It's a good amount as always. Thank you, Langers, for posting that on the Reddit. Then Dave, as our special host, I've collected some questions, both from Twitter and from the Rocket Pool Discord community, that I've curated to some degree, so they're not the bottom barrel of trading. That'll be a good time, and then if time allows, after that, we can jump into some Q&A.
Sounds good.
Langers, you with us now?
I am. Hey, how you going?
Good to have you. Great. All right, so Joe, do you want to tell us about this announcement that just went out on the Discord? It seems pretty timely.
Yeah, sure. I'll start off with that when we wait for Australian ISPs to become more accommodating. So essentially, we have been beta testing this 1.5 release for a little bit, kind of in parallel. We had a version on Robson, which already had Redstone deployed, so people could try out like the new reward system and things like that. And we had a version on Goerli, or on Praetor, where people could try how the client worked with kind of the contracts as they exist on mainnet today, the original deployment. And fairly shortly, I think, probably during this Twitter space, we are going to be upgrading Goerli to the Redstone contracts so that they will have parity with what's on Robson and soon to be what's on mainnet. So what I am asking all of the beta tester node operators to do is to watch the logs for their nodes and try various commands and things after this transition to make sure the 1.5 beta 2 client handles that transition smoothly and gracefully, and it notices that Redstone's been deployed without anybody needing to do any complicated nonsense like reinstalling or restarting or anything like that. It should just work out of the box, and that's what I'm hoping to see.
Great to see this sort of pre-run to the live release happening. It's kind of like we have the merge playing out in the background with these merges happening on the testnets, and we have a similar thing going on in Rocket Pool. So yeah, I encourage anyone that's running a beta node to be watching.
Yep, doing our best to front run the merge.
So let's dive right into the bi-weekly update. There's a lot to get through. Every week we always start with some of the numbers about protocol growth. The most standout to me has been by far that, if interestingly enough, effective RPL stake has dropped a little this past fortnight, 2 weeks. This is, of course, partially related to the fact that the RPL ratio has increased, and so users are either being pushed outside of their collateral limit, or they are enforced to sell some off, or they have excess collateral that's no longer effective. However, in other terms, the protocol has been trucking along. Of interest, Rocket Pool's TVL growth has been leading all the LSD protocols. Dave, how do you feel about our growth in light of all of these market conditions?
Yeah, absolutely super stoked. I think it's been well, the last few weeks for us, obviously we've been concentrating on Redstone. But it's good to see the growth still trucking along. I mean, it's been pretty continuous for last few months. Week on week, it's just growing and growing and growing. So yeah, given the bear market and the little bounce that we've had recently, I think things have going along, yeah, incredibly well actually.
Definitely echo those sentiments.
Yeah, considering kind of other platforms are kind of retracting to still be growing at a reasonable rate is absolutely fantastic in this kind of market.
Of note, the current rETH discount is around 1.5%. This is, of course, Rocket Pool has been leading the market in terms of the smallest DPEG of the liquid staking derivatives. Another cool little benchmark. So as Joe went over at the beginning, the Smart Nodes beta has been under testing on Goerli. Additionally, as part of the Smart Node update, we have MEV Boost. MEV Boost has been talked about a lot on Twitter sphere because it is now being widely adopted and tested for the merge. So how has the adoption in the Rocket Pool stack been going, Joe?
Well, first off, I have to give major props to the Flashbots guys because it is very easy from a sort of developer perspective to integrate into our stuff. I think the entire integration process took like 2 days total for me to do.
Nice.
Yes, it is very nice, and I'm quite happy about that. From a client perspective, excuse me, Teku is good to go, ready for testing. It's fully integrated, and now we're just sort of in the final beta stages of that. Prism is good to go as well. They have the same kind of support for it built in. Lighthouse is mostly good to go. They have experimental support for it, but you have to build your own version from their development branch in order to get it to work, which is what we've done. So all of the 1.5 beta stuff is actually using that development version of Lighthouse rather than the canonical one. And Nimbus does not currently have support for it yet, but they're getting pretty close. I'm working with those guys and keeping tabs on the progress, and they were up quite late last night trying to get all of this stuff ready to go. So I'm hopefully going to be able to put something together off of their development branch this week or maybe early next week, depending. That way all of the clients can test it. And interestingly enough, Lodestar, of all things, does have support for it as well.
Wow.
Even though they're not officially integrated into the Smart Node stack yet. That is definitely on my to-do list. But it basically what I can say is all of the mainnet clients are taking this very seriously, this MEV Boost thing, to ensure that solo stakers have access to MEV after the merge happens. Yeah.
For those listening who are unfamiliar with MEV Boost, MEV Boost is what kind of allows Flashbots' market to exist, and what allows validators, well, currently miners, but soon to be validators, to extract MEV value. So the fact that most of our clients are ready with that is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm quite sure that they're all going to be ready by the time the merge happens. There's not really much of a question there.
Some other tidbits from this beta is that the Smart Node is now capable of using a fallback consensus client for its commands if the primary ever goes down, and that the added fallback execution client and consensus client now have support for native mode. Anything else you want to add about the Smart Node world?
I'll mention with Beta 2, the entire fallback system has been completely redone. So before, like as it exists today, you get one fallback execution client, and that's it. And as of 1.5, how it actually works now is you have to specify an externally managed execution and consensus client pair. Because after the merge, you have to have one execution client tied to one consensus client for it to work properly. And so the idea is you have like a second machine or something that has a separate pair of these clients that you can use as a fallback. Mm-hmm. So that whole system has been revamped, and I encourage everybody who's running a beta node on Praetor right now or on Ropsten to check out the fallback feature and make sure it's working properly if you have the capacity to run a second machine, for sure.
Great. How would you compare the UI from the previous version to the current iteration?
The UI doesn't change that much. The previous one had more options. It let you specify if you wanted to have like a locally managed one, in which case you use a light client like Infura or Pocket, or if you wanted to have an externally managed one, or none at all. And now there's not really this local option anymore. It's purely none at all or an external one.
Great. Perfect. So moving on to research and design, our audits have been ongoing for the Redstone merge. We have successfully completed one round, and now consensus audit results have been returned to us. Langers, can you give us a brief overview about the audit process for Redstone, what's been done, and what our status is on that?
Yeah. So Sigma finished their audit a few weeks ago and gave us the report. We fixed like the few things that they kind of raised, and then they've essentially done the fix check to make sure that we have actually fixed things. So they're all completely done, and that was probably a couple of weeks ago. Consensus have been auditing and have given us the initial report. So the process is essentially the same thing. We've been going through and triaging. Kane has been kind of fixing up the very, very few minor things that they've kind of raised, and then we will kind of throw back the commits to them and say we've fixed it, and then they will just sign off to say that we've fixed it. So that's kind of the process, and give us a final report and all that sort of thing.
Will we be seeing these audit reports sometime after Redstone goes live, or
Yeah,
is
definitely.
that unclear?
Before Redstone goes live, we will be publishing. We want to kind of wrap everything up and put something out around that. So it won't be like in the next week or whatever, but it will be kind of wrapping that up so that we can make it public and all of that sort of thing.
Which is good because September 19th is theoretically just around the corner.
That's right. Yes, it's coming very, very fast now.
So in other research terms, the government's delegation page, this has been ongoing for quite some time now. Are we expecting an article about this soon?
Yes. So that is actually in internal testing at the moment. We're just kind of doing some kind of tweaks and that sort of thing to it. So we'll kind of do that for the rest of this week. I have been working on a Medium article that's kind of almost ready. We just need to put some nice images and that sort of thing around it.
Part.
Yeah, the most important part. It pretty much is. Dave would agree. Dave would agree with me on that one. So we will be getting that out very, very soon. So just to give some context to that delegate page. So part of the voting system or the kind of the signaling system for governance is that there will be a way for delegates to nominate themselves as delegates, and people will be able to delegate their votes to those delegates. Obviously, we would prefer that most people, are actively participating in the governance, but we know that not everybody has the time to kind of do that. So that's why delegates kind of enable us to capture a lot of that sort of voting power and make sure that it's actually being put to work as opposed to kind of just not. So so that's kind of the idea around the definition. And we'll have, as I said, if this article goes into, first of all, the idea around the voting system, how it's going to come about, and how you nominate yourself as a delegate, what your kind of responsibilities are, and how voting works.
So one thing I think that's very interesting about our potential governance path forward is that rocket pool governance is somewhat difficult to enter into for voting. Whereas most tokens, you can vote as soon as you have access, or if you stake very easily into their simple staking protocol. Rocket pool governance is going to be dependent on only users who are running actual nodes for the most part.
That's
the
right.
PDAO. So that's an already fairly high burden of entry. And so On top of that, we are also likely to have a quadratic system to help smooth out voting power. And to me, this is a lot of novel governance applications. So I'm curious, Dave, from your perspective, how do you feel about this very somewhat egalitarian way forward that the DAO is seeming to be structured around?
Yeah, so originally one of my main kind of ambitions with the PDAO was to make sure that any voting or participation done in it is done by people that are well and truly entrenched in the protocol. So node operators, that makes a complete sense because these are the guys that are really the backbone of the network and the protocol. So they're effectively running the show. So any decisions they make, will have a profound kind of impact on the protocol as a whole. So if they are, invested in the protocol, they have a true desire to see the protocol work. I think that will give their votes, some more credence than, anyone that could just own a token and just vote on a whim or anything like that. These guys are well and truly kind of entrenched in the system. They have, pretty high stakes. I mean, it's not a small amount of ether to become a node operator by any means. And so same with RPL being staked. These are two things that basically quantify node operator as being someone that is well and truly kind of invested in the protocol. I think that's very important. I think that counts. That has a lot of weight for decisions, and they're not made lightly. It also gets around a lot of other aspects, where you have Sybil attacks with tokens and things like that from other governance systems where it's trivial to get a token, kind of make a vote, or even it suffers from other aspects where you can actually have collusion and whatnot. This is much harder to do when you have a high barrier to entry. So I think that generally, I think it's a very good path for it. Obviously, we're open to feedback. We're extremely pragmatic when we come to the protocol. So if it works, if it looks like it's working, we'll continue going forward with it. If it doesn't look like it's working for any reasons, then we're definitely going to be open to feedback. But we're not married to any single approach. But I think this is a good start.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's very important that we have a system where you can't sort of just go out, borrow tokens against your USD and influence the governance outcomes. And we've seen that happen in various DAO protocols. So I'm glad Rocket Pool is taking a very forward-thinking approach. In other R&D terms, this staking as a service protocol continues to grow in the background, I believe. Any updates on that front?
Yeah, so Kane's kind of we've moved from prototyping almost into development now. So we're kind of actually developing the contracts, and actually a lot of the contracts have been developed, but we are kind of working through a lot of the kind of edge cases and finalizing some of how, particularly. There's some functionality around. It's a bit complicated to go into without too much context, but there's like this kind of buyout functionality which we're working on. So we're just kind of playing around with how that kind of works. But it's going really well, and so we're actually in development now. So rather than just kind of vapor, so that's really exciting. And so we'll kind of start publishing out the information that we've kind of shared it internally. Well, I say internally, I mean within the community, within some cohorts within the community, but we'll kind of make it more widely known now. Particularly, thank you, Marso, for the tweet that went crazy. So we will definitely start pushing out that information now that it's kind of a lot more locked down.
Yeah, big shout out to Marcy. That was a great Twitter thread. Thank you very much.
It was. Yeah, it was really good.
The SAS document, I'm curious if you had any feedback from a high level from the various organizations that.
So we've had a lot of feedback from NOAA, from the Node Operator Association, and that's been really helpful, to be honest, and to work through the lots of different angles. I mean, from a product perspective, as a developer, you have an idea about how people are going to use the thing that you're building. Otherwise, you wouldn't necessarily be building it. But it's only with kind of that feedback and that constant kind of to and fro and questions and probing that it becomes a better product or a more aligned product with how people are actually going to use it. So that's been fantastic. So we've had a lot of feedback from them. And we've been meeting with the other stakeholders as well. Actually, there's one stakeholder I need to touch base with. So they're very, very happy with the approach as well. Different use cases have different. I think Noah has the kind of the wider kind of need in terms of the sorts of things to support. Other stakeholders have kind of they're a little bit simpler in a lot of senses. But it's really good. It's going really well.
One of the biggest strengths for the SaaS design is how variable it can be and how many different niches it'll be able to fill. So I definitely am glad to hear the variety of different organizations that have brought feedback in.
No, that's kind of part of the plan, is to get a very, very broad spectrum of businesses, so that again we end up scaling out. I mean, really what we're doing here is bringing Rocket Pool's permissionlessness to businesses, so that they can start building on Rocket Pool and not only help Rocket Pool in terms of the capacity, so being on the node operator supply side of things, but also to have that width, the broad kind of long tail of businesses and that sort of thing.
Exciting to see this continue to flesh out. There have been some small tweaks to the Rocket Pool website. Anything of interest?
We shuffled the news stuff around, and I'm trying to think what else we did. Nickel poke me. We did some kind of like small tweaks. And Maverick actually went through a lot of the website and did a few little things on there as well to kind of just consistency things and that sort of stuff as well.
Great. And lastly, in the weekly update again is the Goerli oDAO. Oh, sorry, this is a different thing. And the Goerli oDAO node upgrades are now ready. Joe, do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, give me a second. Sorry, just drinking. The Goerli oDAO nodes. Okay, there's, let me think. Boy, there's so many oDAO nodes to keep track of these days. We've got the Robson ones, the Goerli/Prayer ones.
The node upgrades are now ready for Redstone to post them?
Yeah, it's basically just installing the latest version of the oDAO software onto the Goerli nodes. And the one thing we had in our kind of infrastructure was to obviously optimize things a little bit. We had a shared execution client. So we would have like one RPC node that the oDAO, or not one, but a couple of RPC nodes, rather than having one per oDAO node. And so we've had to kind of change our architecture a bit because of the fact that it's better kind of practice, or it's actually more essential that you have a CL and a consensus layer client and a execution client together. So we've kind of had to adjust that slightly.
Great. Most of our listeners probably are not in the oDAO, but the oDAO is very important for the ecosystem as they maintain a lot of functions that unfortunately require oracles. That summarizes the R&D portion of the call. Moving on to governance, unless Langers, you have anything else to add?
No, that seems good. Yeah.
So governance. The forum, as always, is very active on some major topics. This week, discussion has highlighted the Optimism governance funding request. There are a lot of back and forth about how these op tokens should be used. So I highly recommend listeners who are interested to check out the proposal. We are currently thinking about splitting these op tokens entirely on liquidity incentives for rETH, but the interesting portion is how those incentives will be distributed across protocols. And so the two major protocols under consideration are Velodrome and Beethoven Balancer through Beethoven. Now, this is an L2 focused deployment, so it's very interesting to see how the L2 demand for rETH will affect the protocol on L1. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of put, I guess, probably a fair amount of work into trying to figure this out. We've kind of gone with Balancer quite heavily because Balancer works very well with how rETH works. So it has like these metastable pools, which kind of adjusts its weights based on the true value of rETH. So we've kind of heavily then on that. Plus, they have some interesting ideas or some really good ideas about how they move towards getting away from incentives, which obviously will make things a lot more, long-term sustainable. So there's definitely some interesting stuff going on with Balancer at the moment. Then the Velodrome will work quite well. We are working on like a co-incentivization for that, so that we can kind of get more bang for our buck in terms of that. But yeah, there's a few things going on there. So no, that'd be good.
Previous iterations of this proposal also included Uniswap as one of the protocols that should include incentives. However, that has, under some degree of community consensus, been removed. But if any listener feels strongly against this, now or never to speak up. Uniswap may have the benefit, given its concentrated liquidity, of being more capital efficient. However, it has no flywheel effect to build long-term liquidity. Definitely pros and cons to this topic. Tokenomics is difficult.
It is.
So additionally in governance, the oDAO expansion was announced in Discord. This included the returning Oracle DAO nodes that were recently lost due to the unfortunate exploit, as well as the announcement that the team is actively looking for and soliciting opinions from the community about who should be suitable for this role. This was a very important role, given that these Oracle DAO nodes, though no individual can cause any harm to the network, collectively they must maintain honesty, and so that the protocol can function. So these members all have some degree of layer 0 social credibility on the line, as well as a substantial financial capital bond. Popular suggestions that the community always throws out when discussing oDAO expansion include the host of the Daily Gwei, Anthony Sassano, Sassel, Mr. Orange Man, as well as some people from the community who have requested themselves be considered. And I think there are a number of community members who have shown themselves to be both capable of high-level decision-making and consistent. So definitely an important topic.
I can probably chime in on that one, Jasper, because that's pretty much what I've been doing at the moment. Is basically getting all this organized. I'm not going to drop any bombs at the moment, but we have been discussing, like we definitely realize that there are significant contributors from the community. I mean, Rockpool wouldn't be where it is if there wasn't. We've basically been talking amongst team members, possibly weighing up the ability to add a community member or two potentially to the oDAO down the road. Obviously, we haven't locked in any decisions around this yet. The reason why we've gone with current oDAO members is because they, like you mentioned, they have a fairly strong social bond to behave, obviously based on their role in the ecosystem. One of the other things that we generally try to look at too when we do approach, or suggest oDAO members. Obviously, we don't have unilateral control over oDAO members anymore. They must be approved by the other oDAO members. In saying that, when we do propose members, we definitely want to look at ones that contribute strongly to the Ethereum ecosystem as a whole, because oDAO members they have ongoing costs as well, running an oDAO node, but they also do get paid to do the role. So we want to kind of use those funds to help contribute back to the Ethereum ecosystem through these valuable members. So it's part of the reason why we've gone with many of the client teams to date. All the main block explorers pretty much. These are valuable, players in the ecosystem. So going forward, we're going to, obviously try to continue that as much as we can, but we do want to look at potentially, adding in valuable contributors from the community. So it's something that's under active discussion with us, and we'll definitely let you guys know where we kind of land on that in the future.
Love to hear that. It's of course important that the original cohort had that huge social capital, and it was incredibly bullish, for lack of a better word, the first time seeing Article 4 come out at the list of heavy hitters who were involved. And this was a pretty big decision because it meant that all these client teams, Etherscan, Bankless, etc., were putting a fiscal commitment in Rocket Pool. So very excited to see who you guys can round up together for this next batch.
Yeah, we're like I mentioned, it's something that we're actively engaging in at the moment. So won't drop any bombs at the moment. Article 4, like you mentioned, that took a fair bit of finagling on my behalf to get those in there. So I try and do the same as good as I can again, but it is definitely a team effort because we're reaching out in different angles for this one. So honestly, to me, as long as they're a valuable ecosystem contributor, they don't have to be a huge name, but obviously they're invested in the Ethereum ecosystem, staking in general, and they can use that oDAO paycheck to kind of further, their development work towards the ecosystem, whichever form that takes. I think that's probably one of my more valuable kind of aspects when engaging with potential members.
Yeah, great to hear that perspective. The oDAO is in many regards a public goods funding mechanism, much like one of my favored oDAO candidates, Protocol Guild. However, that is a discussion in and of itself, given that Protocol Guild is a DAO rather than a single clear entity. But anyways, if you have thoughts on who you think would make a good oDAO candidate in the ecosystem, please drop them in the forum. Moving on from governance, in terms of integrations, things have been a bit slow as the MakerDAO integration has stalled as they do a technical overview of the Redstone changes to make sure that their vault will be suitable, as well as the Oracle teams doing some of their own additional reviews. They have slated in a brief update that they should be done with this in July. However, it is somewhat unclear exactly when this vault will go live. Landers, is there anything?
Yeah, I did reach out to them. Was it yesterday or this morning? I can't remember. Time flies. I think it was yesterday. I did reach out to them yesterday, and they couldn't get it into their current sprint, which was like the last one. I don't know how big their sprints are, but they said they should hopefully kind of be looking at it in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, we're looking at a few weeks before we kind of get any information about that. But I'll definitely keep those follow-ups kind of scheduled in so that I can keep the pressure on a little bit, but also to just to make sure that we get the information out to everyone.
In other DeFi news, the Alchemix rETH beta vault is no longer able to be used. They have disabled the vault, and pending a future change, the rETH is temporarily unavailable to be withdrawn. The future change will allow rETH to be sort of essentially pulled from market liquidity sources rather than the deposit pool, and this will free up the rETH in the vault. However, unfortunately for the time being, the Alchemist rETH vault is inactive. Additionally, the other thing I had to mention was that the Ribbon Vault, unfortunately, also is currently above its strike price for the week. Again, this Ribbon Vault is an options-based platform, so risk is inherent to the form. And unfortunately, it seems that this vault may expire in the red for the first time this week. So if you are in the vault, make sure you are not risking more than you are willing to lose, and you are taking proper precautions. Although we are degens in trading, make sure you are not risking anything you cannot lose.
Yeah, I guess it's bad news for the vault kind of holders, but good news for everyone else who's holding
Right.
ETH. Yeah.
General question. It seems we are a bit of a standstill in terms of the Aave integration as we wait for liquidity and volume to build for the Chainlink Oracle. Is there anything you can add to that assessment?
Yeah, I think we need market conditions to be. I mean, obviously things are looking quite positive at the moment, so that's good. But we need kind of the liquidity crunch to ease off a little bit. So we need the market to recover a bit more before that's going to we're going to get very far with that, I think.
Speaking of liquidity, the Curve wrapped Steve or ETH Vault, favorably known as Scalpel Pool, is no longer offering any Curve incentives. So if you are providing liquidity in the vault, be aware that the only rewards you are getting are from passive staking rewards as well as trading fees. So this is a pretty good deal given that you should be averaging out above passive staking yield given the trading fees. However, if you were expecting the Curve rewards, the Curve emissions that had been slowly dripping out for the past several months, these are no longer available. Despite that, fortunately, the Curve pool still has about 13,000 ETH worth of liquidity. And these incentives dropped off about 2 weeks ago, which is a good sign that perhaps some of the liquidity is not as mercenary as we thought, or the underlying Curve pool is worth it for some people. So in terms of media, the Rocket Pool YouTube channel is now live. Maverick, do you want to talk a bit about what the goals are for this channel?
Absolutely. If you've taken a look at the YouTube channel already, you'll see that there's not a whole lot there right now. It was great to see the channel get over 100 subscribers despite that relatively quickly. That'll help us to further enhance the channel later on. What we intend to post there is snippets of recordings such as this community space right now. What that will enable is if someone's interested in a particular topic, we can cut up 2-minute or 5-minute or 10-minute sections and host them there under a specific title that people can very easily reference. We also intend going forwards to have educational content posted there. And who knows, perhaps one day there might even be a call like this as a live stream with video on YouTube. So the possibilities are really endless, and we're just getting started. It's a great resource to have available to us.
Yeah, I'm excited to see us expand our media offerings. I think the more widely available education about Rocket Pool is, the better. Some people like to say the most powerful thing to be is understood. I think that certainly is the case for Rocket Pool.
Yeah, and I think it's timely that we set this up. Obviously, going into the merge, there's going to be an increased interest in what exactly the merge is, how it affects everyone in the ecosystem, whether they're simply holding some ETH or whether they're staking. I know I personally have friends who claim to be, deeply involved within the industry, crypto traders who are really not sure what's happening in September. I heard one comment about, it's just some other testnet, no big deal kind of thing. So I think between now and then, we'd expect kind of a ramp up of awareness, excitement, maybe hype even. And it's a great opportunity for Rocket Pool to kind of capitalize on that. There'll be a lot of people who will be out there looking for answers. And if we can provide them and be seen as a reliable source of truth, that just means more eyeballs on the brand. And that'll help us, bring people into the community. Perhaps they might be a bit interested in the protocol itself after engaging with some educational content. So certainly if there ever was a time to do it, I think it's now.
I totally echo those sentiments. I think the hype is yet to build into what is one of the most important events in all of crypto history. I think if you're listening and in the trading Discord channel and you're excited about the merge or Rocket Pool leading into the merge, I'd ask that you send your favorite emoji or the emoji that makes you think about the merge. It's definitely going to be something that we want to capitalize on.
Yep. Certainly the most anticipated event, I guess, outside the flippening, but we don't have a date for that quite yet.
Another news, we now have a link tree for all of our various resources that I'm assuming you put together?
Yes, that's right. So the link tree is not being used anywhere right now, but in the future we can update, for example, the Twitter bio to have that as a link. What it enables people to do is to easily navigate around the various different channels that Rocket Pool has. So it may be of use to you now as a reference, but we'll be placing that around Twitter, Discord, and the like going forwards.
I think we have a problem. I don't think anyone's excited about the merge. I have only seen 4 emojis posted in the Discord trading channel. I think we might have to change our narrative structure. I demand more emoji spam in trading.
Just having a look now. Oh yeah, very very tame emojis as well.
Maybe okay. We'll get this community in shape in time.
There we go.
I'm sure once the RPL price starts having the effects of the merge, we'll get a bit more excitement. But anyways, in terms of excitement, the Marsu thread has done quite well and even had a article published about it in the Defiant. So that was pretty exciting to see. I've gotten myself lots of questions about things covered in that tweet thread.
Yeah, definitely great engagement, great eyeballs on Rocket Pool brand and what's being offered and what is to come. I think one initiative that we're wanting to implement is to more effectively communicate future plans and future roadmap ideas to you guys, because there may be a few concepts floating around that are intended to be implemented in the future, but it could be difficult to give a date or specifics around, what it might look like or the technical feasibility. But if it's something we're looking into, it's something that we want to be able to share as much as possible. So yeah, keep an eye out in the future. Something along the lines of maybe Rocket Pool Labs or the like, where we can share some insights into what may be coming a little bit further down the track. And I think that that would cover some of the concepts that Ma So shared in his thread.
Great to hear. Yeah, having a sort of centralized way to find all the information and coordinate is definitely going to be important. And speaking of coordination, some changes have been made into the Discord. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think similar to the YouTube channel, kind of just getting started, but setting the stage for further enhancements further down the line. We now have a nice new banner at the top. If you haven't seen it already, if you scroll all the way up to the top of I just scrolled up to the top of the channel list, you can see it up there, although it may be obscured right now by the little event pop-up, which is another thing we've implemented. So future events will be listed in there as a convenient resource. You can click in and see your local times, where to go. There'll be a kind of a pop-up, as you can see now, when an event has started. I'll endeavour to close them going forwards when events have finished on time, and hopefully that can be useful. Further down the track, we may look to introduce one or two more channels, or perhaps consolidate some. But yeah, clearly the Rocket Pool Discord is an incredible resource. It's a great place to be. I think my priority is getting the trading channel further up the list. So I'll see if I can make any progress on that.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. And in terms of getting the Discord community engaged, do you want to talk a little bit about the AMA that is scheduled to be coming up?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. So we are going to attempt to hold this AMA. It'll be very similar to the format right now that we have on Twitter Spaces, except it will be in Discord. So there'll be an audio stage set up. Behaves very similar to Twitter, although in my experience, a whole lot more stable, which is always good. And we'll have the team on to share, I suppose, a little bit more in depth about Redstone and the implications for you guys, what that means. Whether you're running mini pools, you have ETH staked, but yeah, same time on Friday. And just like this call, we will have recordings made available as soon as possible afterwards. If you can't make it, if the time zone doesn't work, we'll take out the highlights and make that an easily accessible resource, because I'm sure there are a lot of people who are excited to hear more about what Redstone means for them.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge upgrade and lots of things are changing. So node operators, I highly recommend tuning in to make sure you are aware of what is going on. Lastly, in terms of media, the Bankless ad campaign has been doing quite well, exceeding 2 million collective views in June, and in July, a number of episodes have been ongoing with the ads. So hopefully, potentially, some of this recent RPL price bump was related to the ad campaign that has been ongoing. It was good to see that in action. That just about, unless you wanted to add something, Maverick?
Oh, some great stats out of there from Bankless. Obviously, so the stats were from activity during June. Of course, the view count will kind of tick up over time, and that is something that we're going to be monitoring to get a better sense of the effectiveness of these ads. But yeah, I would agree that with that kind of large number of eyeballs on the Rocket Pool brand, it's bound to have some positive impact. So yeah, great to see.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And that about that wraps up the end of our protocol update for the past 2 weeks. Lots of information that we covered. So if you missed some of it or something wasn't quite clear, I recommend going to the Reddit r/Rocket Pool, where you can find a detailed text about everything we talked about.